Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to do a quick little rundown of my most important things in the most recent Darkest Dungeon 2 early access patch. It's a huge one, so I'm not going to go over the whole thing in detail. It's just a lot here, and I don't want to make the video so long. So let's jump into it. I've just got a few things that I think are really important to the general community here. Okay, so the first thing that I noticed is the affinity system changes, and these are huge. It was probably I think most people are big fans of the affinity system in the game. They like where it's going, but it was just really frequent, and it kind of broke up the flow of fights. So what they've done is they've tuned it based on their first observations. A short-term goal is to have less chatter and instead have smaller number of more meaningful moments. So I think that's what people want. They don't mind it, but they want it to be more meaningful and less often. So that's perfect. So the next thing that really stood out to me was the meltdowns that they've adjusted. What could happen was you would end up in like this endless meltdown cycle where you're just constantly getting pounded by stress and you can't get out. So they've addressed that. New stress after a meltdown is 2 instead of 5. 5 was a lot. I mean, you're coming back out of a meltdown with 50% stress rate out of the gate. That's a lot, right? So it would put you in this cycle of just constant stress. You can't get out. You can't get healed because you're losing all your health to meltdowns. Your relationships are going in the toilet, and it's not good. It was not good. So that's a huge one. Now we'll move on to a couple of the hero things. Maybe we'll touch on this a bit more here because some of them are really important, right? The death blow isn't that important to me. Stress recovery skills now operate on thresholds similar to healing. So I feel like that's a huge change, right? Having the stress recovery on thresholds is kind of it's a big deal, and there's a lot more in here. Tooltips related to stress threshold have been updated for better legibility. That's nice. I mean, we always like to have better legibility. Prevented numerous skills from being used on corpses. I'm not sure what skills. I guess you'd have to test that out and see which ones you can't do now. A big one here. Grave Robber's Absinthe now has a use limit of 3. So the Grave Robber was almost more tanky than the Man-at-Arms in a sense, where you could just constantly be using this absinthe and just stay alive. So now with that limit of 3, that makes you got to really pick your spots. Grave Robber's Dead of Night no longer triggers effects if it misses. That's kind of big too. You're not if it's miss, you're not getting nothing from it. Highwayman's Riposte max damage has been slightly reduced. I mean, everybody knows that the riposte move for the Highwayman is a huge move, so I'm not surprised that they've tweaked that a bit. Crit rate has been slightly reduced also. Highwayman's Take Aim Plus now grants 1 dodge instead of 2. I think it becomes pretty obvious here which characters were getting considered the most powerful here, right? And they're trying to tweak it so that other parties can use different compositions. The Jester's Inspiring Tune has a slightly lower stress threshold requirement for use. The Man-at-Arms Riposte max damage has been slightly reduced, so they're really nerfing ripostes here, and I'm not surprised. Bolster has been reworked on Man-at-Arms. I'm not sure what the rework is. I haven't looked at that specific move yet. And here is the biggest one. This was probably everybody's go-to, well, most people's go-to move when the game first came out. Apply Doctor's Ounce of Prevention. Plus, now only heals stress at threshold, and that threshold is 5. It feels like a bit much. Maybe it'll have to get tweaked down a bit. We'll see about that. I feel like 5 is a lot, and it makes it really hard to manage your stress. Hellions Raucous Revelry and Raucous Revelry Plus now only heal stress at threshold. So again, you're healing it at thresholds. Adjust the description of Hellion's Winded token to reflect that it persists until combat end. I did notice that yesterday when I was playing, that the description's been tweaked. And the Occultist's weird reconstruction no longer has a battle limit. This is a big one for some people. Let the 0 heal bleeds commence in abundance. I can hear people screaming about this one, and it's great. What we want, right? We want to be screaming. We're playing Darkest Dungeon, so get all your 0 heal bleeds going. That's great. Let's move on to the next thing. This one stood out to me because I I lost a run. I was in the middle of a run before this patch happened, and I was at the very end on the way to the mountain. So I was fighting the cultists that happened there. And then the patch came out. Prior to the patch, you could really focus down the deacons, the cardinals. You could focus down the big enemies and leave the cherubs to the end. You could just ignore them, just forget about them. They weren't that big of a deal to me anyway. Now the worship skill now grants 25% heal, clears dots on targeted deacon or cardinal. So that caught me off guard. Now you can't just focus down the larger enemies and that are there. You really do have to focus down the ones that with the worship skills. You got to get rid of them because it's just going to be impossible to get rid of the other ones that are just constantly getting healed. So that's a huge one for me. And the last thing that I want to say, can someone please, please, please help the folks at Red Hook find the art design for the jumbo trunk, please. They need it. It's missing. Send it home. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.